I love that.
All right, Beth.
Great. So my name is Beth Butler Fatal. I'm Executive Director of Disability in North Carolina, and we are thrilled to have with us today Thomas Colclough, who is the District Director of the EEOC Charlotte Office here. Tom is a great friend and colleague that, gosh, we connected. I think the first time we met was in 2018. He presented during our first mental health wellness at work event here in Charlotte. Mr. Colclough started his career at the EEOC in 1988 and through the agency's Stay in School program, which some of you may know now as the Pathways program. But Mr. Colclough worked full time for the EEOC one semester, and then he would return to school and take on a full load of classes, was a full-time student for the next semester, and did that for a 2-year period through that Pathways program. Over the years, Mr. Colclough held a progressively higher positions, moving from an investigator role to the supervisory and managerial positions, and then achieved an appointment as area director for the Raleigh area office. And I think, Tom, that's where you and I first had lunch, was when we were in Raleigh together, and then he subsequently moved to the deputy district director position here in Charlotte. And so during his tenure at the EEOC, Mr. Colclough has been the recipient of numerous agency awards. He is an active participant in the agency's outreach education programs, which is why he did not hesitate to say yes to today's invitation to spend some time with you all. But he regularly presents to employer groups, to special emphasis groups, as well as nonprofits and student organizations. He's also steered the development of many important enforcement cases. And he is a retired North Carolina National Guard veteran. He is a graduate of St. Augustine's College, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in business administration. And he also holds a master's degree from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And so looking forward to hearing from you today, Tom. It is always a pleasure, and we just appreciate your unwavering support of the work that we do here at Disability in North Carolina. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so very much, Beth. It is a pleasure to be here. And Sue Ann, she welcomed me as I got on the call. So good afternoon again, Sue Ann, and I am thrilled to be here. With your permission, I'm going to do this a little different than a presentation, but rather, as we did this morning, Beth, more like a conversation that I get to ask a few questions and I'll then give a few answers. So, and I know that we all don't have on our cameras, but you know me, I'm going to ask everybody to turn on their cameras for me. But here is the thing that we're always thinking about. At EEOC, and I love, the what our name is, it's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So I'm going to ask Samantha a question. Have you ever heard of EEOC? And what did you hear?
I have, yes. I have heard of that organization, yes.
And what did you hear?
So I think it helps with if there's employees that need help, maybe with something with their organization, they're able to reach out to the EEOC. Well,
that's kind of that. What we do is we investigate charges and complaints of employment discrimination. And our mission is to stop and remedy unlawful employment discrimination in the workplace and make sure that we're providing opportunity for all. That is a big and lofty mission. I do want to applaud you because guess what, Samantha? When I started with EEOC, I didn't know anything about EEOC. I thought I'd never heard of it. And then I remembered watching this TV show, and I'm gonna kind of date myself. Have you ever heard of this TV show called Good Times? Okay. Well, I finally remembered it, that there was an episode on Good Times in which the husband, James Evans, had applied for a position that his wife also applied for. And he was denied the job because the company stated that they wanted to specifically hire a woman for the position. Guess what we call that at EEOC? That is employment discrimination. Now, here's the question for you. Do you think that employment discrimination is just based on race? It's not. It's based on race, color, sex, religion, national origin, age, disability, or genetic condition. And I'm going to go to Zakia. Did I pronounce your name incorrectly?
No, you said it right. It's like,
All right. Okay. Now, one of the most interesting things, and you all at the University of Charlotte, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we all went to high school, and I remember when I was in high school, and I lived in the country, so we had to travel from the Zebulon, if you've ever heard of that, all the way to Smithfield. But there was always a bus in front of us, and I met this, and there was this gentleman, and he was disabled, and he and I, although the bus was in front, we went to different schools, 2 different schools, but we're both going to the same path. You wouldn't believe that we finally met when we grew up. How we met was he was working for a company called JR Tobacco, and I don't know if you've ever heard of that company.
I don't think so.
They're on I-95, JR cigars and stuff like that. And they were on I-95, and we met because he was working for JR, and at the time, JR decided to reduce their staff. And sadly, they found a job for everybody but him. His name was Johnny Nairn. They found a job for everybody but him, and they made it clear that it was because of his disability. And this is when the Americans with Disabilities Act first came out, and I was so excited and thrilled to get this case. Because you know what? I never met this guy when we were in school, but we finally got to meet. Super guy. I became the investigator for his charge. And Zakia, you do know what happened at the end of the day, right?
What happened?
We prevailed, and we won his case for him. The company refused to engage and try to resolve it, so we wound up filing a lawsuit against this particular employer, and we won his case. And what was really cool was with the monetary settlement he received, he went into business with one of the friends that I had from high school, and they own a really large landscaping business now. So that was a good thing. And hopefully we also taught the company JR something about employment discrimination and that everybody deserves an opportunity in the workplace. Now, here's the question, and because I said I was going to ask the question, Zakia. So you're in college. What year are you? As they say, what's your classification? What year?
I'm a senior.
A senior. So what job opportunities are you looking for when you graduate?
I'm looking for public health opportunities. So anything with research, with a specific interest in women's health issues and maternal and child health.
All right, fantastic. I'm gonna bounce over to Jessica Kim. We're gonna see what Jessica's also interested in. What are her job opportunities?
I'm interested in finding jobs in the mental health counseling field.
Okay. That's a tough business. I applaud you. All right, Chanel Jenkins, how about you? We're not going to let Chanel get away. Right.
I think she might be calling in or on the phone.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to find the unmute. I was on my phone. So
That's
I'm
okay.
actually a volunteer and I'm employed in healthcare.
You're in healthcare. And what do you do in healthcare?
I do infection control and staff education.
Oh, wow. So here's the question. Since you are employed, and we have folk, students on the call who are not employed right now. What are the ideal outcomes that you look for every day in a job?
That's a really good question. For me, it's a sense of community and belonging, because the task you can always do, and you can do those in various places, but feeling like you're a part of a bigger team is really important to me.
Okay. Does anybody else feel that way?
Yes.
All right. Well, guess what? I agree with you, Jessica. Me too. That is something that I think we all want, and we want to make sure that as employees, that somehow that we are we are involved in the engagement of the organizations that we work for, and that we have a fair shake at being able to do the job. But does that happen with every job?
Not at all.
Okay. So, but why do you think there are barriers to that, Chanel, that it doesn't occur?
I think sometimes the barriers might be that people aren't necessarily in the right organization and they're not aligning with the mission and vision and values of that organization. And so they don't really kind of fit into the team. I think it's probably part of it.
All right. So here's another hard question. I like that, Chanel. Now, when you look for a job opportunity, and I'm going to go with the number one researcher in the world, Dr. Google. Do you Google the values and the mission of the organization?
So I've had this job for 10 years. And I did look up what the mission and vision and values were, because my first job as a nurse, I did not look up those things. And I ended up in an organization where I was not very happy. And it really wasn't going in the direction that I wanted my career to go. And so since then, yes, and I always encourage our staff, because I do staff training, to make sure that they are in line with what we're trying to accomplish too, because if they're not on the same page as us, they're not going to be happy. And as employers, we're not going to be happy with them. So.
You're absolutely correct. So I'm going to urge everyone on the call today that when you're looking for a job, that you always research to find out what is the mission, the values, and as Chanel said, what is the vision of that organization? Because you're not going to believe this, Sue Ann. We can always make more money, but we can never make more time. And we want to make sure that when we're looking for that career, do we want to invest 20 years and then figure out that I never was aligned with the mission, the vision, or the values of that organization, and they were never aligned with me? I have met people that have spent their whole career somewhere where they didn't want to be. I was telling Beth this morning about one of my mentees that I had to have that hard conversation with them just this week and tell them, I think maybe you're in the wrong place. Go look for something that meets your values, vision, mission, and also your expectations of what you want to do as a career. Now, here's some, and hey, Pat, how are you doing? I have to always say hey to Pat. But here's another question that I'm going to ask you. And I believe Zakia is still there with us. Now, Zakia, have you engaged in any intern opportunities since being at the university?
I have.
How were those intern opportunities?
It was okay.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You know what I always think about when I hear the word okay, right?
I'm pretty sure.
That means it wasn't a knockout. It wasn't okay, because that's the opposite of okay, right? KO. It wasn't a knockout. So what made it just okay?
I think a lack of communication from me to my preceptor. My preceptor also pushed me and the other interns off to just a regular employee who had she was actually in the cohort before me. So she had actually just graduated recently. And I felt like I could have got a lot more out of the program if the preceptor was a lot more involved.
Okay. So she pretty much was, she brought you on, she brought you on, she handed you off.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't make you feel good.
Mm-mm.
Is that an organization that you would entertain with giving 10 years to?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Now, was that your one and only internship opportunity?
It was.
Okay. Well, I am so sorry that happened. As Beth mentioned, I was a stay in school student with EEOC. And believe it or not, after I finished, and I call it an internship, after I finished that, I was kind of at a crossroads because my plan was to go back into the Army as a full-time Army officer. That was my goal. And then I received a phone call that said, hey, I'm sure you've heard of this guy. It said, hey, at that time, the chair of our agency was Clarence Thomas. Hey, do you want to have lunch with this guy? He'd like to talk to you to see if you are interested in coming to work for us. And, so I had lunch with him. And yes, for all of you who, we had a very interesting lunch. Chitlins and collard greens. It was great. Yes, it was. It was great. You do what you got to do. But the question was, we spent basically, we were supposed to have maybe a 30-minute lunch, and we spent the entire afternoon having a conversation just about employment discrimination and what did I want to do with my life. Again, as I stated, I'd planned to be an Army officer. I thought the internship, stay in school, was just, I'm just doing that, but we'll see what happens. And I think one of the things that was interesting, because yeah, you're right, Zakia, I did ask one question when he said, do you want the job? You know what that question was?
Mm-hmm.
What was the question?
You said, do you want the job?
No, when he said, do you want the job? You know what my next question was?
Yes.
What was it? No. I was
No.
young then. Oh, what are you paying? I want to know, what are you paying?
Yeah.
And I know. Now I say to myself, that dude's on the Supreme Court. How could I have said that to him at that time? What was I thinking? But I did. And he kind of told me what he was willing to pay. And I'm like, well, that's less than I would make as an Army officer. He said, just try it. And I took the chance to try it, and I've been here ever since. So, and I found out that all of those things lined up. So I'm sorry you didn't have the experience I had, because if I hadn't had a good experience, I'd have been jumping out of airplanes and all that kind of stuff. So I don't like, I'm afraid of heights. So that wouldn't have been good for me either. But the other thing is this right here. What do you think the biggest barrier is in getting hired?
Honestly, I have no idea.
How about you, Samantha? Any ideas? What do you think is the biggest barrier?
I think, well, going through the application process, maybe working, filling out having to go through that process in order to connect with an employer. I think it's
Okay. I'm coming to you, Jessica. What do you think it is?
Maybe having enough experience to even get the chance to even have a chance to get an interview or anything like that. So having enough experience.
Okay. Chanel? I'm going to ask Sue Ann.
Yes, sir.
What do you think?
Are we talking about in general or for people with disabilities?
You see, that's a great question. Both.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think meeting the qualifications
Okay. And what about persons with disabilities? What do you think the biggest barrier is?
Attitudinal.
You know what I was looking for?
No, sir.
That's what I was looking for. It's the attitudes. Because when we apply for jobs, guess what we're also dealing with? The majority of the time we apply for a job, you've never met the person who's going to interview you. You don't know who they are. You don't know what their attitudes are. You don't know what their belief systems are. And you don't know how they're going to feel about you in the room. Right? So you're already stressed out enough. And as Sue Ann says, you also got to think about the attitude of the individual. Because 99% of the time, guess what we never do? We never apply for a job that we're not qualified for, or that we don't have the experience, or the application process. We feel good about those things. Agree? I'm going to tell you about my last interview. Yes, Sue Ann, it was hard. It was a panel of 4 people. That was round 1. Round 2, round 2 got a little tougher because it was one person. And I remember what I was told. They said, hey, you have 2 hours in this interview. And here's what you got to do. You must take all 2 hours in this interview with this person. I took all 2 hours, Sue Ann, and do you know what happened when it hit 2 hours? They got up and they walked out. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I wonder how it went. And I've got a Zakia take a 5-hour drive back home, wondering how that went. They gave me no indication. And then on round 3, it was 5 people. And guess what they didn't do? All they did was send me 1 email each with a question. How do you think you'd feel about that one, Sue Ann, as an interview? Grueling. You are correct. It was grueling. But guess what I was very hopeful for? And that is that the attitudes of the individuals. And that's why I go back to the making sure that we do some of that Googling and research, looking at the visions and the values of different organizations. I'll be honest with you. We investigate a lot of companies. Right now, our docket probably has over, I think we have maybe 3,100 cases just in the Charlotte district. Some of those employers are great. Some of them are not. Some of those, we're having to educate them as to how to follow the law. So the question is, and I'm going to kind of go with what Sue Ann is talking about with the attitudes that the people have. How do you prepare yourself once you get into the room, Sue Ann? How do you prepare yourself?
Are you talking about like when you're interviewing?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I tell myself that I deserve to be here. And I try to calm my fears and just do a lot of like self-affirmations.
Okay. Guess what? In case everyone did not hear that, I don't know. Sue Ann keeps reading my mind. But she's right. That's what you have to do. You have to be totally confident in who you are and what you're bringing to the table. Because at the end of the day, guess what? What every organization is looking for. And I said this to Beth this morning. They're looking for great talent that can help them to propel their organization. At EEOC, guess what I'm always looking for? Great talent that helps propel our organization. Emily is a witness, as we were having training this morning, that the trainer, which is one of our local directors, he was saying, hey, this is what every investigator must have. because the #1 job category at EEOC is an investigator. One is great analytical skills. Do you know what I know about everybody on this call? You all have great analytical skills. The other is critical thinking skills. And do you know how I know you have great critical thinking skills? Because that's why I've been asking you questions and you've been able to give me answers immediately. You were thinking through the questions. The other is the communication skills. Jakia has talked about it with that OK internship. Communication skills are important. And I know you felt that during that experience, that person didn't communicate well with you and they didn't really give you what the expectations were going to be. And I mean, because you had a set of expectations, but they didn't live up to your expectations. And they could have told you up front what their intent was. And maybe you then could have matched it with your expectations. Agreed? And the other thing is for every organization that I'm always thinking about, and that is customer service. Because as Sue Ann was talking, guess what Sue Ann was really saying? Hey, I'm going to be confident and positive in myself, but I'm also a customer. And that organization has to always think about that, because you know what I also bring to the table when I'm interviewing? I bring me, but I also bring my resources. Because if you treat me pretty bad, I'm going to tell all my friends, don't ever shop there. You know, we can take our monies somewhere else and do other things with it. But again, thank you, Sue Ann. I love the way you put that. Love the way you put that. But always be positive in yourself, because the barriers are always going to be there. They're never going to go away. But the thing that to always remember, if you know your craft and you know it better than anyone else, you can also talk for those 2 hours and never miss a beat. And yeah, you're right, Sue Ann. The other thing I did was, you're not going to believe what happened with that 2-hour interview. All of my notes and everything that I'd prepared for the meeting, I forgot it and left it at home. I packed the wrong notebook. So the night before, I had to redo everything all over, because I kind of had to do a presentation. I had to redo everything all over again. Yeah, that was tough. Good thing my memory was not too bad back then. At least I could remember what I had written before. Now, have any of you ever heard of USA Jobs? And what did you hear, Sue Ann?
Is that the site where it's for government related jobs?
It is. And the federal government does a lot of hiring. And you can go onto USA Jobs and you can develop your resume up there, and you can also post your resume, and you can put a link that when jobs become available, that it'll send you a notification and you can apply for various jobs. Now, am I one of those persons that puts a link into USA Jobs like that? Nah, not me. I guess I could. I'm going to ask Emily. How about you, Emily? No, but I know a lot of federal employees that do, and they get notifications all the time. My current job is I'm a senior executive, and so they give me a notification anyway at our HR. They send us a notification monthly. Hey, if you want to do a rotational opportunity, here you go. Or if you want to go to another agency, here you go. So that's one of the reasons I really don't look. Have any of you ever heard of the government's Schedule A hiring authority? Or do any of you know what that's about? Okay, well, I'm going to kind of go over it a little bit and stop me if you have any questions. Fair enough? Now, and what I'm going to do, Sue Ann, is I'm just going to go right through this as the questions appear to me on my form. And that is,
do you want me to let you have screen share?
Oh, no. That would, guess what? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I get this sent out to Beth to get to you all. Fair enough. And that is, can an agency, and that's any federal agency, hire a Schedule A candidate without posting a job announcement? What do you think, Zakia? First of all, you want to know, what is a Schedule A candidate, right?
Yes.
A Schedule A candidate is a candidate that may have a physical or mental impairment that classifies as a disability. And I'll kind of, and there's kind of a sample letter that an individual with a Schedule A would just get their physician to prepare for them, and they submit that to an agency. Okay, so the answer is yes. One of the benefits of using the Schedule A hiring authority is that an agency can make an appointment without the individual going through the competitive process. And what that means, Sue Ann, is, like I was talking about USA Jobs, instead of the candidate applying for a job through USA Jobs, they could just say, well, hey, Department of Defense, I hear you got some job openings come about. Here's my resume, and here's my Schedule A hiring authority. And they can interview you for the job without any other candidate applying. Isn't that pretty cool, Zakia? I like Schedule A hiring authority. It's you know, the other reason why I like it is it's really fast, really fast. Now, an announcement is not required, as the Schedule A is an accepted service hiring authority. Okay, and when people are, you know, and as you know, Zakia, every time someone is hired, they're always hired on a probationary period, right? Well, most people are hired on a 90-day probationary period. Schedule A persons, when they're hired, any idea how long that probationary period is, Jessica? And I know she's driving, but it's 2 years. And Zakia's like, what? 2 years? Yeah. Because guess what may need to happen? We may need to, you know, provide reasonable accommodations, and depending upon the person's medical condition, to determine how long it's going to learn to do the job. Most investigators, we expect them to be proficient within 90 days. But if you think most investigators are proficient in 90 days, Zakia, that's a joke. We enforce 5 laws just for the investigators. It takes a couple years. It takes that. So that 2 years is a good opportunity for that person to, you know, get into the job. Now, are there any restrictions on using the Schedule A appointment? What do you think? The answer is it can be used for any series and up to the GS-15 level. Okay. The GS-15 level, I think it goes from GS-1 to GS-15. After the GS-15, then it's knuckleheads like me at the senior executive level. So it goes all the way up. Now, can a non-veteran be selected over a 30% disabled veteran on a Schedule A certificate? When people use USA Jobs, believe it or not, and this is true, Zakia, the number one applicant on a USA Jobs certification, and that's the list of people eligible to be hired, the majority are always going to be veterans. But a Schedule A person can be hired over the veteran, because again, you don't have to go through that same process. Okay. Now, can a Schedule A employee use this authority to apply for a higher grade position? Or do you only get to use it one time, Zakia? What do you think?
I think you can use it more than once.
There is no limit. You can use it as many times as you like for any position that you're looking for. The only thing that you have to do is provide proof of the disability, which is a statement from your physician, and a copy of your resume. Isn't that pretty cool? And this question, must applicants with disability provide proof of his or her disability? The answer to that is yes. And that typically is, again, is through a letter. It doesn't mean that the person has to provide a copy of their medical records. No, it's just a statement from the physician stating, hey, you know, Sally Jones is a patient of mine. This is a condition that Sally has, and said Sally qualifies as a Schedule A under this hiring authority. Okay, and that's it. And the hiring official will never know that. Now, can a person with a disability submit the same documentation or certification more than once when applying under this authority? And again, the answer is yes, because there's no number of times that you can do this. Are candidates subject to a new 2-year conversion period if they move from one position to another? And the answer is no. And I'm going to give you the site for Schedule A. It is 5 CFR, that is a code of federal regulations, 213.3102, paragraph U. I know Zakia is like, what? I know that's a whole lot to remember. Meaning you can transfer from one agency to another, and you don't have to start that 2-year period all over again, that conversion. Again, person can use a Schedule A hiring authority as much as they like, and meaning, Zakia, you could do that with any agency, anywhere, at any time. Now, are agencies required to use the Schedule A to hire persons with disability? No, they're not required. But I can assure you there's one thing that we do at EEOC, Sue, and guess what we do? We use it. Again, because I love Schedule A, because guess what? It's easy. I've got a talented candidate that meets the qualification, that can do what they can raise the brand of the organization, meaning they can help us to get the work done. Because why? We know they're qualified. One of the organizations that I use is WRP. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of WRP. If you don't have your resume uploaded in WRP and you're in a Schedule A letter, you're cheating yourself if you don't do that. Make sure, if you're eligible and able to do that, because guess what I do all the time whenever I'm looking. I sent my boss last week my wish list, and Zakia is saying, what is your wish list? Well, hey, the president signed the budget. Guess what I did? I sat at my desk and said, okay, if I could fill any jobs, what are the jobs I want to fill? And I created my spreadsheet of vacancies that I know I need to fill, but then I have a wish list of vacancies I want to fill. You're not going to believe what I got on my wish list last year, Zakia. I got every position I asked for. So I jumped ahead of the game. You're right, Emily. I sent that to Rosa already. Here's my wish list. And pretty much what I do is I kind of write a memo that kind of justifies everything, every position that I have on that list. Yep, that's one of the things about being a senior exec, Zakia. You got to justify everything in that communication memo. But the beauty of that is that once I get a yes on those vacancies, guess what I do? I go to WRP initially. That's my first stop. The other thing that Beth has told me that I have to do, and she's going to make me do, is that even before I go to WRP, once I get the yes, I need to let Beth know. Right, Beth?
That's right.
There you go. And that way she can start helping us, to find, hey, are there candidates out there that are Schedule A that we can go ahead and talk to folk? And again, the reason being is it's fast. And the reason for this, Zakia, is that if I have to go through my personnel representative at HR, we have 15 districts. I have to get in line if I use the regular hiring authorities. You know what I'm saying? I have to wait for them to post a job. I have to wait for them to evaluate all of the candidates to tell me if they're qualified or not. Then they have to provide me with a list. Then I have to schedule the interviews. But if I have a Schedule A candidate, guess what I'm able to do? I've got the Schedule A letter, I've got the resume, I schedule the interview, and if the candidate is great and that's who we want, we're done. I just call the personnel representatives and say, hey, we want Zakia, and then we're done. And the next time we hear from Zakia is when it's time to to come aboard? I'm sorry, was there a question out there for me?
Yeah, it's just me. I was going to see if I could interrupt for a second and talk about my experience with Schedule A.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Cool. So I actually entered the federal government through Schedule A hiring authority. So just kind of wanted to echo some of what Tom has said. So when you submit that letter from your doctor, I suppose it depends on the agency, but I was a federal employee with the Department of Homeland Security, and they didn't even need specifics. So it is very much like a template from your doctor, and you don't even have to tell them what your disability is. You don't have to talk about it. It really is. I think Tom's making it sound very kind of seamless and quick, because in my experience too, it really was. And I would definitely encourage you to look at those opportunities. Another thing I wanted to mention is, well, stepping back for a second. So you see this very often with contractors. So if you're thinking about going into consulting or becoming a contractor, and you're put on a project within a federal government, a federal agency, and you really like your team and they really like you, and they see the talent that you bring to the table, they may want to bring you on as a full-time federal employee. And this is kind of what happened with me. I was a consultant, and then working with DHS, really liked it there, and they wanted to bring me on. And if you have a disability, you can bypass, like Tom was saying, a competitive, hiring process, and they can just hire you on to the role that you kind of already have, if they have that capability using Schedule A. So just want to talk about that. And the last thing I wanted to hit on is, if you're not a consultant or a contractor and you see a position on USA Jobs and you want to apply with the Schedule A authority, most offices are going to have a Schedule A coordinator. So not only, I would encourage you to apply on USA Jobs, do some research, Googling to find that individual, and email them directly saying, hey, I'm really interested in this job posting. I just applied using the Schedule A authority. Just wanted to connect with you, that type of thing. And that's going to help you stand out as well. Sorry, Tom.
Absolutely.
Sorry
Oh, no. Thank you, Emily. And she is absolutely correct. I was telling Beth this morning that a lot of the positions that we hired last year, I would say 75%, I sought out Schedule A candidates. And because again, when directors are given, Zakia, the authority to hire, if I do it through the normal process, I have 25 days to complete everything. That's look at the list, schedule the interviews, interview all the candidates, background checks, references, and then make the selection. Those 25 days include weekends and holidays. It's easier, so you can see how easy, it's much easier with the Schedule A candidate, because I can take my time. And again, what I have seen thus far, it's always a more perfect match, because again, the person who's with the Schedule A that submits their resume, they're actually looking for that career job. That's what they're looking for. Versus, as I stated earlier on, there are a lot of people that use the USA competitive route. Well, this is the deal, Sue Ann. They may apply for a job in Raleigh, but they also applied for a job all across the US and in different countries. So it's like, wow, I could be interviewing, and this has happened many times through the competitive process. You're interviewing a candidate, but the candidate is interviewed with 4 or 5 of your peer directors. And now we're fighting over that candidate. Whereas again, with Schedule A, I've got a candidate who wants to work with me. See how beautiful that is, and how perfect a process that is? It makes life so much easier. Now, a few more questions that I have for you, because I know I'm running out of time, right, Sue Ann? I know. And that is, have each of you prepared a resume? Okay. And I know Sue Ann is at the Career Center, correct? Well, at that Career Center, guess what I know Sue Ann is willing to do? She reviews resumes, provides advice and guidance. That is really, really important. And because different resumes require different things. I know that this other thing that the agency put me on, I'm on this this group. It is called the U.S. Commission for the Social Status of Black Men and Boys. Okay, it's a presidential commission. My resume that I had to submit for that is completely different than the resume I submitted for my job. And so you got to make sure that you're submitting the right resume, and that resume had to go to my chair and also the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. They wanted to look at it too. So a different kind of format. The other thing is that something that Beth and I talked about a little earlier this morning, and that is, if you don't have a mentor, go find yourself a mentor. All right, someone that helps to feed into you about your career and where you want to go and how you want to get there. Okay. Now, I think those are the questions I have on my list, and I know that I have talked a lot, but I want to give you all an opportunity to ask me questions. And just again, real quick, EEOC, we're going to be doing some hiring very soon. And so I hope, because Beth, I'm going to let you know whenever we get approval for those positions. And I hope some of the folk on this call will be willing to at least let us take a look at their resume. But
Yeah, Tom, this is Beth. Thank you, because yeah, I do know, and when we talked a lot about this morning, a couple of things. One is, you know, the individuals that are on today's call many of them are mentees, right? So through the CommunAbility mentoring program, so they have some experience with mentors at this point. But speak to us just really briefly, because we talked some about this, the value of a mentor in your experience, in your career. You started off at an HBCU here in North Carolina, and share with us kind of you know, what role have mentors played in your success in your career?
A mentor is an invaluable individual that can help you out in your career, and it can help steer you and keeps you on the right track, or lets you know when you're going off the track. My mentor when I was in undergrad, Dr. Frank Godfrey, and I'll be honest, the positive comments that Sue Ann gave us this afternoon, I didn't have some of those. I had doubts within me as to what I could and could not do. But with talking with my mentor, things became crystal clear, and it helped guide me. And since I've been at EEOC, I've always had a mentor, someone that I rely on. When I was promoted to a district director, I reached out to a friend of mine who's a district director in Houston, and I told him, his name is Rayford Irving, and I said, Rayford, hey, I'm looking for a mentor, and you're it. I says, I need you to be my mentor. So I said, because this is new to me, and I had been acting in the job for 3 years, but I said, but this is new to me because it's real, and I need someone that I can call on, ask questions to, and that you will tell me when I'm messing up. Will you be my mentor? He said yes, and we talk now on a weekly basis. The other thing, Sue Ann, I have 4 mentees right now that I'm mentoring. 2 are situational mentees that we just talk periodically when they have things going on, and 2 are people that we actually have scheduled mentoring sessions on a monthly basis. One of my formal mentees, we meet no less than 4 hours per month, and another mentee I have, we meet every other week. But it is valuable. As I said to Beth this morning, Dr. Fernie Brown said something many years ago when I was in undergrad. He says that we have a responsibility, to throw the rope down and pull somebody else up. So the mentoring, that's what it's really all about, that we're helping each other. Because some of you today are mentees, but guess what? And you're going to be a mentor someday. So you're going to realize how valuable the experience you have now, because you're going to you're going to give that to someone else. And you're going to be shocked, Sue Ann, when your mentor is calling you because they need you for advice to help guide them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Colclough. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here.